All right. So I have so some of you guys filled out the survey thing, and really the point of that was to lay the groundwork for some of the stuff we wanted to go over tonight, and really just sort of set up for everybody what is your starting point, and then how do you build towards what you want to do next. And so what I want to do is kind of start by going through that, and if you didn't do it, you can do it now as we're talking. And if you did do it, I want you to sort of, as we talk about it, you might want to revise sort of what you put in. Um, and this is really for you and the other folks you end up working with closely. Um, and so you can record it in whatever way is best for you. Um, so the first thing we did was just to map out like what is your student body? Is it, and I broke it out in sort of broader strokes so that we could say, well, little kids, older kids, adult and teen white belts, green to two brown, brown to two black, black to go down and masters. Like, what's the demographic mix of your students right now? Um, and partly that's to, yeah, as we start talking about what do you want to do, is saying when you visualize I want to have this many students, it's not just I want to have this many students, but what's the makeup of dojo that I want, my thing for unity is I really want to have this spread that goes all across age groups and ranks, because of the goals that I have, right? But that's not everybody wants to have kids, not everybody wants to work with seniors. You might have very different sets of goals. Um, I also like looking at it this way because I really I visualize it as this like triangle with a ball on the top. I really want to see that I have this big group of beginners, kids and teens and adults, and that there's this smaller group of middle ranks and this smaller group of advanced ranks, and then the bubble is the folks that get past black belt and are just they build up because there's more of them there. So oftentimes more black belts than brown belts. Um, and so in my mind, I'm looking at the pandemic was when I really started visualizing it that way because it just swiped the whole middle out of it. And I realized, wow, okay, we still have students, but our triangle is all messed up. Um, so when you guys look at that as you record that, do you see anything that jumps out at you right away that's like, not only do I want to grow members, but I'd like to grow more of this spectrum, either this rank or this age or anything like that. Does that jump out when you guys map out what you have now?
Well, I'll just say that, we have that same exact thing. We have a group of white belts and one greens, and then we jump all the way up to, well, we have one, two green, and then we jump all the way to our one black stripes and two black stripes. There's no green belts active right now, no one or two browns, no brown belts, because
Mhm.
not only because of that kind of COVID gap, but also moving off of campus
Right,
when that kind of lost that middle group.
right. And so I would say one of your goals is just hold on to those white belts while your triangle rebuilds itself,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so yeah, retention is the big word for that category of effort is
Yeah.
holding on to those students. What else?
Yeah.
Does anybody else see any interesting dynamic when you break up the ages and ranks of your students that way?
I would say ours is similar to Mark, like with the adults. Actually, I don't think we have any white belts right now, and we just mostly have brown belts.
Okay.
So we definitely need adult wise to grow that new students, new adult students.
Yeah.
And
You guys have some kids, don't you?
yeah, and when it comes to the kids, have mostly just new kids. Um, we do have some that are a little more advanced rank, but kids we run into the same thing that around eighth grade, as team sports start happening, um, uh, we start losing those kids. And
Okay.
so even though we have a handful like five, teen sports start next thing you know, we're down to two or one, and the one's looking around going, well, I'm the only one here
Yeah.
of this group now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, even without sports, I mean, it's like just being with their friends, whether it's one on not the skateboard, the
there's
What does AJ get into?
skateboarder, AJ's a scooter, I think.
Scooter, he's a scooter
Scooting with friends.
interest, but I think it was more to be social.
Yeah.
Want to socialize more. I don't think we were doing enough socialization events that get all the kids together.
Yeah. So
That's
those are
big-
both really good observations that I want you to make sure you keep written down. Like the idea that whether it's the whole truth or part of it, if it's team sports, but you have in there 3 really important pieces of data. One is the age at which you're starting to lose kids. Another is, your perceived notion is maybe it's about team sports, but maybe it's just the socialization thing, or there's some other activity that's very interesting to them. Like that's actually really, really good information when you're visualizing what you want to do. So, I would encourage everybody, especially if you notice a dropout point, whether it's when they get to green belt, they tend to drop out, or when they get to 9 years old, they tend to where is it that there's an uptick in loss? Because when we get to this question, and I'm going to come back to this several times of, well, I would like to add 8 students between now and training camp. Well, that's not really what you want. What you want is to gain 8 more than you lose between now and training camp, because you don't want to add 8 and lose 10, right? And so what you're really looking at is where is the hole? Is it that they're not coming in, or it's that they come in and they go, or some come in but more are going? Like you really want to look at those 2 things with equal weight. And if you can keep enough data that you can have a spreadsheet that says, oh, look, we tend to lose them all right at 2 green stripes. What are they doing at 2 green stripes? Or we tend to start losing them right here because they're doing XYZ. And then you go, oh, that's when they're sparring. What's going on when they're sparring that's making them not want? Anyway, just like as an example, you can start trying to do that detective work. Did anybody else notice anything else? And I would say that we're gonna sort of evaluate where our schools are, but then we're also casting forward to say, what would we like them to be? And so some of looking at the demographics of your school and saying, this pops out as me as less than I would want it to be, is part of you visualizing what you would want it to be. In the perfect scenario, what's the spread of demographics? What's the number of students? I don't think anybody wants infinity students. So there's some number that you like the most that feels really comfortable. So anything else jump out at people? And for you guys, like Ben, I know you're like getting ready to start a new thing. The exercise for you really is try to visualize what you want. What is the right amount? And there's all sorts of things that create that we'll get into in a sec, but you just kind of want to you want to visualize what your spread is or should be.
So and just starting out, I don't have that retention or dropout point data.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you find that I understand each kind of area is different, but are there general dropout points that we see kind of universally?
In the industry will tell you that, right, there's a big one at about 3 months. They'll tell you that at big transitions, like when they start sparring or right after they get a big promotion, are times when you often lose people. But I would say it's very, very unique to the DNA of your particular school. So your best goal right now is not to say, I got to watch out for X, Y, and Z, but to really start keeping track right from the get-go of, when do people start? How long did that take to get promoted? Like, just keep track of the data, and then you have that tool there waiting for you. You can even, if you like doing Excel or Google Sheets or something, you're really good with the formulas. As you're keeping track of people who join and quit and get promoted and all these things, you can have it generate a lot of that data for you. So you can start showing like there's a spike at this time, there's a spike at this time. And it'll just create that automatically. You can even have it say, you keep people on average this long and they usually quit after this long. And so you can have it automatically generate some of that for you.
I had when I started here, I started at a local liberal arts college.
Mhm.
So I pretty well knew after 4 years, I was going to lose most people. And it was interesting. So I would sort of mark, okay, when they joined the club, were they a sophomore or junior? And you could sort of map that, all right, my expectation is this person is going to be moving on in 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was not, I had a few people that came in first term, first year, and really tried to concentrate on them because I figured in 4 years I could make some progress. And that worked out well on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
But that's an example of where you kind of know you're going to have these people for a period of time.
Right.
Uh,
The second
Ben, are
question
you
I asked,
looking
unless
at,
somebody's got another thing about that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Ben,
yeah,
are
go
you looking at kids or just adults that are going to be starting?
At least adults at first. This is going to be through my employer, so it would only be employees and potentially family. But at least at first, I'm just going to focus on the employees.
Yeah.
Are you
Okay,
doing it
well, that's good.
at work, after work, during work?
It's 24/7 facility, so kind of you define that how you want. It would be outside of my work hours, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's one of the things you want to start visualizing is what makes the most sense to you, and then as the rubber meets the road, you figure out where you want to bend, and what would be your ideal schedule. And one of the things I like to tell people when you're thinking about, if you think about adding a big thing into your life, is that you're taking other things out. When you do that, you're always exchanging things. So it's sort of like, what am I gonna give up in order to do this? Even if it's like, you say, well, I'm gonna start adding 3 trips to the gym into my weekly schedule. Well, what are the 3 things, or what are the things you're spending to get that? Are you spending that half hour that you sat around in the morning drinking coffee and chatting with your spouse? Because you want to know that's what it costs. You just think about what are you budgeting as you add and subtract things from your life. So when you think about how many classes I'm going to do, really take seriously that your life has a balance now, and then you're going to go, just so that it's not wearing on you the whole time. Know what it means to you. So we've got on here how many teachers and assistants does your dojo have? I would add to that, is that working? Not just how many do you have as a number, but is that is that enough that you feel like all the ranks are getting what they need? Is that enough that you can break it up the way you want in any given class? Is it enough to have enough classes to serve everybody well? And then the last part of that question is, are your assistants, how are you getting them trained, and are you happy with that? Are they assisting well? I mean, obviously they're all well-meaning folks that want to help, and that's why they're there assisting. So if they're not doing a great job, then what you want to do is figure out how do we train them, and what's that process? So did you guys have? I noticed when people answered this question, there were often ranges, which I thought was interesting. Which I interpreted as this person helps inconsistently, where there are several people here who help sometimes, but I don't know for sure that they're going to be there to help. So were there issues with this question that either made you think or wonder, or did it feel like it was a straightforward question? This is how many folks I have.
No.
This is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Do you wish you had more teachers, or is it just right?
I think maybe a small modification to this question could be consistency of teachers. Because at
Okay.
Cypress, we technically have 9 senseis,
Right.
but 2 of them come once a week.
Right.
So now that's 7. And then one of them is currently going through med school processes and applications and all that. So he's consistent one week and consistent another. So what you end up having now is we really have 4 core senseis. And then I don't want to say 5 floaters, but like 5 intermediate to orbiters to like life's just in the way. One has kids, one has this going on. So you lose this consistency in instruction for some. Like, we can't dedicate some time. Like, if we have a brand new person in October or November, like we can't dedicate the manpower because they won't have consistent instruction.
Yeah, my personal interpretation of what you just said is you have 4 teachers and 5 assistants. That's the way I would look at it if they were teaching at Unity. Just because again, like I want to know who I talk to about how the 1 and 2 green stripes are doing. And so if I can't figure out who that is, then they're probably not getting taught very well. something isn't going well. So I would say that that's the situation you have. And that's a lot of people. Joshua would probably love that. And so you can do a whole lot with 4 instructors and 5 assistants. But I would definitely I would resist the urge to call somebody an instructor if you don't know for sure that they're gonna be there for this class this time. Then they're a helpful person who's there sometimes. Not to be hard on anybody, that's a great way to be. It's just you do want to know who's instructing, and I have lots of fun people who show up from time to time and are very helpful. But I want to know who's going to move these students forwards. If it's not me, is there somebody else I'm relying on to make sure they know what they need to know? So with that said, it sounds like, how many of you guys have sort of an inconsistent instructor situation? Is that a you either have too few or a whole bunch?
I think I would say we do also.
Yeah.
Bordering on the too few. When you have kids and adults at the same time and the ranks are so disparate, I think, is that the right one? Yeah, disparate. Then it's like, oh, I have to put one person here and I have to put one person there, and then that dictates everything because they're so far apart.
Yeah.
That's on a night when you're alone. So usually it's Rosario and myself, except for first and third. Mondays I'm not here, so you're definitely alone. But that's adults only. Our third sensei who comes, Don, he's always here Wednesdays.
Always here on Wednesdays. Yep.
So he's very consistent. So Wednesday we have 3 people usually, but then there's always vacations or travel or family issues.
Like I had to work late Wednesday and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So
this is some of your data. If you are looking at students and dropouts and ranks where they're sticking to, or ranks we have a lot of them, and then you can also pair that up with who has consistent teachers or inconsistent teachers, or maybe they have helpers that drop in and out, you might start to notice some correlation. Getting somebody who knows they're your teacher and they're excited about it and they're ready for it every class hits a lot differently than, oh, Tanner, would you cover these kids because they're regular, they don't have a, it's, why don't you handle them tonight? They're not going to feel as served. But and again, I don't know if that's the situation, but I would look and see if that some of those things match up. You might even have, one of the things you'll see pretty commonly is all the beginner kids have got this excited teacher who's working with them. And then when they get where they know some stuff, you're like, they're fine, they can handle this. And then they start getting shuffled. And maybe they're with this group, or maybe they're with the teenagers, or maybe they have but that feels like having divorced parents, You're like, I don't know whose house I'm at or where my toothbrush is. And so that can feel inconsistent.
Yeah, and mom says one thing, dad says the other
Exactly.
thing.
I was told I could side drop like this. Yeah, so you don't know. But I would, again, it's data. I would just, collecting data is never going to hurt you. So it might reveal a culprit that is lurking. So the one of the big things that we got to when we were looking at sort of what we wanted to talk about was coming up with the story of who you are. So if you've got a dojo already, this means a couple things. One is what's your story? Where did it come from? How long has it been open? How did it open? It then also translates from there into, is it, we all just went through an insane pandemic, so everybody probably got kicked in the gut, but is it currently, like, do you feel like it's flowering, or it's sort of in waiting, or it's this cocoon? Like, what do you feel like is your impression of your dojo? And then even more importantly, like, what is its DNA? Like, what is it that brings the people in your dojo together? What are the things they have in common? And I want you to start writing those down. Like, just make a list of, who are we? What do we identify as our core? We all have Kung Nu and its philosophy and these experiences together as a core DNA. But then there's, like, you probably have a slightly different spin on it. If you're with a different teacher in a different town with a different background, there's some other flavors in there. Maybe they love fencing, and so there's always a little bit of fencing stuff going on. Or maybe they're huge gamer nerds, and that's part of your culture in your dojo. Or, like, what is it that brings you all together? Are you all part of the same football team? Are you all interested in the same dodgeball game? Whatever. There's something besides just your martial arts. And there might be 5 of those things or 12 of those things. And so I want you to start thinking right now about, what could you list as the things that will bring you all together? If you said, I'm doing this on Saturday, 60% of them would show up. That means that's a big thing for you. We've got our camp out. Some people are already out there in the woods. 120 Unity members will show up, and they are not all students. There's a whole lot of people there who are not Unity students, who are families and students from before. And so to me, it's like, okay, going on and camping's a strong word for it for backpackers, but it's driving cars out and eating food on the lawn. But that's, they have a good time, and kids are running and playing. And so that's one of our things. That's part of our DNA for sure. And so you want to say, what are the things that if we did them right now, everybody would show up? And so do that. Because what I want to build into that is, this is not only how you're going to build retention, but it's also how you're going to do marketing. Like, it's one of the main ways we're going to do marketing and retention, is knowing who your crew is, what brings them together aside from just martial arts, and how do we access that? So who's got some good ones? And keep in mind that they're not all obvious immediately. So if Jacob says, we all like sharpening knives, Joshua might be like, oh, we like that too. I didn't think of that.
So one of our big thing is our semesterly field day, which I'm stealing 2 of your students for. Actually, Thomas and Clay are coming down for it.
Oh, I'm sending a birthday present too. They've been telling me about it.
But it's I think we do every semester. We get together, we play kickball, dodgeball. Me and one student have a flag football rivalry. Or rivalry. So rivalry. Ugh.
Rivalry, yeah.
Yeah, and we're constantly competing for that. And it's just a big time where we all come out and just do other sports and express our love, I guess, of physical activity.
Now, is this like the school-wide field day, and that's just you guys all go to it, or is it your group holding a field day?
Cypress Dojo field day.
Nice. So how many is this, like, families and other folks come to this, or is it all your students?
All our students, since they're college students, so their families are like scattered across the country.
Sure. Do they bring, is it a time for them to bring friends that might want to hang out with you guys?
Usually not, but that might be an idea to consider to boost recruitment.
Because one of the things that you want to do with these as we isolate them is, if it's part of the DNA of what makes you guys get along, then when you do it, is there a way to invite other people? Because if they like that and they're interested in karate, they're going to fit right in, right? So if you've got, this is a thing that we love to do, and 2 things are going to happen. They're going to come in and already enjoy that thing with you guys. And then you'd be like, if you love this, wait till you try class. And they'll be like, are you guys all gonna be there? Like, yeah, we're totally all gonna be there. And so that's a great way to grab some folks. We got somebody from a karaoke night about 2 months ago who was just like, we started singing songs with this dude, and he's like, you guys are all doing karate together? We're like, yeah. He's like, I've always wanted to do that. And we're like, you're doing it next week. And he's still training. So just do the things you like to do together, and then figure out how you can collect as well while you're there, because you're sort of showing who you are. And in that moment, anybody that resonates on that frequency with you is probably pretty excited to do the rest. What are some other ones you guys have?
We have a student who's in high school and she's active in theater.
Mhm.
So we've tried to make a point of attending her productions
Yeah,
and making that a class activity, but it's also, supporting another activity that she shows. And it's an opportunity to meet her friends
Mhm.
and acquaintances. And as you're saying that, mutual interest gets shared, and, oh, I've always wanted to try that.
yeah,
But, I think showing an interest in another thing that they're interested in.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, putting your, and especially as the head of a school, or
Just
any
being-
senior in a school, to go be in people's lives is one of the great retention
Yeah.
miracles. Show up at the hospital when they're there with their dad, go to the play when they're in it, all that stuff. For sure.
I mean,
There's
we
some
get
other-
together
yeah.
regularly, just after class for dinner. Usually try to do that once a month.
Right.
And that's especially now that we're no longer mostly college students, it's more adults that have families and all. The things that Cypress does, which one of these days I'm going to join your like Itchituckney trip or something and go to the tubing and whatnot. Or when you do the next time you go up to Georgia and hike. But with the adults, I find that, okay, that's harder to get for people to do long multi-day or even a whole day kind of thing. And so we've tailored more like evening events after class, go to the axe trap and throw axes, or we have the picnic that we've done just a couple months ago. It was for half a day, but then everybody could bring their family and all that. And so that worked out good. But yeah, knowing your demographic and what they can and can't do. We used to do a camping trip locally and just do an overnight trip, but I don't know that I could get half of them to do that now with the group that we have compared to when we had college students.
Mark, you told me about doing community service stuff.
Yeah.
Let's
And
talk
that's
about that
another
one, 'cause
thing.
that's a good one to show who you are and meet folks. And
Mhm. Yeah, we're actually going to be doing at the community center where we work out. They have a trick or treat thing going on for the kids coming up soon. And we're going to be out helping to hand out candy for all the kids and all of that. And then we're also going to be doing, we used to do and we will be doing again, the cleanups when you go along the road and clean up. I think, didn't you guys just do that at Sling Shoe, I think, not too long ago? I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So yeah, the community service is big. And it's community service. I mean, that in and of itself, even if it does anything else, it's community service, so it's good.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just to share some of the things that we do. We've made a sort of a conscious effort to have one social event every month at a minimum. So it's, there's all kinds of different things that we might do. Like we just last weekend went to a drive-in movie. So we'll do a movie night. Go to, if there's a cool new movie come out, we'll do that as a group. Once or twice a year, we might have have a movie night at the dojo. We've got a screen we can show a movie. Of course, we go out to dinner kind of every Thursday night after class. Is always a big group that goes out to dinner. Been doing that for 40 years. We'll have a game day at the dojo. So just have people bring board games and we'll have popcorn and order pizza if they want, and people can just sit around at tables and play board games, and that's a lot of fun. Get people together. At least once a year, we'll have a big kind of the game day thing, but more like a picnic in the park nearby, and people will bring lawn games and that kind of stuff and hang out, and that's always fun. Try to do one or two community service things. Yeah, we did a cleanup recently on the street. We collected things for a shelter nearby. Those kinds of activities. So, and I think another thing that really I think has been special for Sungming Shu, and I know we're a big dojo, so it's easier to kind of get that scale going. But um, whenever there's an event that, especially something in the region that we travel to, like going to SMAC or a regional test or whatever is going on, we usually bring a lot of people. And it's kind of gotten, or, IATC, it's gotten sort of in our DNA to travel to events a lot. And once you can, this is what I've found, is that once we get someone who will start traveling, then they want to keep doing it, because it's always a blast, getting together, not just with our folks and having a good time, but meeting other people in the style. And so traveling to events is a big thing that I think helps to sort of cement our community. And it's, of course it's around the martial arts, but it's so much of, all of our Kung Nu events are about being social and being together. And that really makes that family grow.
Hey, Gordon, is Manuel's still a thing in your new location? I mean,
Yes, yep.
I didn't know whether new location was in Grant Park was farther away, but
It's a little further, but we still go there.
that's special.
Mhm.
Joshua, did you have one?
Yeah, so when I was before moving up to Wisconsin, in Greenwood, basically everyone in the city liked to bowl. So basically what we would do is we would have a dojo night out every quarter, and we would go to the bowling alley, take up maybe 3 or 4 lanes, and we would wear a shirt and a Kung Nu shirt and stuff like that. So people would come talk to us, bowl with us, and they could bring family and friends. And I think that was our big spirit down there. In Wisconsin, what I've done since I'm in the Malibu of the Midwest, we do basically a beach day. So we go out, train for a little bit, and some students like to fish, so they go out and fish on the Sheboygan River and Lake Michigan. Some people like to surf, so they get out there and actually go out surfing and stuff like that. So when we're warm enough, we have our beach day. For the 9 months that were cold, I haven't figured out what to do quite yet, though. The 9 months that were frozen.
So I want you to kind of think of it in terms of 3 categories of things you're doing. You've got personal connection stuff, just like leader to student, that helps them know that you care about them as an individual. And then you've got social gatherings that could be almost anything. It could be people all coming to your house, or all coming to the dojo to do something, all going out to eat, all going to do a thing. And unless everybody's a vegetarian except one person and you go eat meat somewhere, like, probably these are all things where pretty much everybody can jump in. They don't have to love that activity. And then you have these specific activities that are, maybe not everybody would love them, but a bunch of people in your school love them. And then when you look at marketing, bringing people just to social stuff is great. The power of the ones that are you guys doing something that you all care about and are interested in, is you can select out more, because you might have somebody who enjoys coming to eat with you guys but is not interested in training at all. Or maybe they're just like, I've talked to the 2 people next to me, but I didn't really get this thing. And so you say, well, here's an event where we're all, walking by the side of the road picking up trash, and we're talking to each other, and we're all, clearly you're here to pick up trash. We have a whole other wedge of values in common. Because I want you to figure out how to make those marketing and retention events. And so if you take any piece of it, and the other nice thing about something you do consistently, if it's always the same thing, the same month, or every month over and over and over again, you now just like when you market, you list, we have our team game night 2 times a month. We've got our book club that meets once every 2 months. So those are going to happen over and over and over again. And so people that are like, I like book clubs and team game nights, they'll know that's interesting. And then when we do them, you invite a lot of other folks to those, because it's not the training, but it begins introducing them to the community. And so it's easier then to shepherd them into trying a class than it would be if you just said, hey, do you want to take karate? Also, and I'm sure you've all experienced this, you guys have all been doing this a long time. At some point, everybody says, I've already talked to everyone I know 100 times about Kung Nu. I don't have anybody left to talk to. But they have 5 friends that would love to come, do the beach day. Okay, yeah, just bring them to beach day. They don't have to do Kung Nu. Just come to 5 beach days with me over the next 6 months, and then suddenly you're going to be curious about what is this other thing you guys do? What was that thing you were doing on the surfboard? A wheel kick? Wow. And then the next thing you know, they're suddenly interested. And so, they say about marketing, you need like 7 exposures to something. And so just getting somebody into that group helps. I will say with Gordon's statement about getting people to travel, that is the silver bullet for creating a lifer, is get them to go to some regional stuff or go to training camp. Or I love with kids tricking their parents into coming as a chaperone, because inevitably every year a couple of the chaperones join up in June and stay for decades. So okay, so that I think is really important. And I want you to keep looking at not just because again, like you could go spend $1,000 on Facebook ads this month and get a bunch of leads, and they're leads, like they're people who clicked on a karate ad. But if you got 5 people that became integrated with your community because of something you all care about, you're going to get more students doing that than you're going to get with 150 Facebook leads. And it's not going to cost you $1,000. You're going to be doing something you wanted to do anyway. And so when we start looking at marketing events to start finding new students, I would highlight this as the first place to start, is recognize what is some of the DNA of who we are as a group. What are the events that we do? And how do we broaden that to bring a few more people in? Don't try to get 100 people, just get 5 strangers involved. And those people now they're interested in this thing also, and you're all really cool, and you all keep talking about these funny stories from your training and what is this thing, and see if you can get 1 of those people to come into class. 2 of those people to come into class would be a big victory. And so what I want you to start doing as a very like right away thing is, what are some of the things we already have planned or that we ought to have planned and we haven't planned yet for the next month? And say, well, what am I going to do with that is going to do one of 3 things: collect the names of leads of people who might be interested in doing this, bring a few people in that friends know, like how are you going to make them bring a couple of friends in or a friend in? And then thirdly is going to make your students feel more involved in your culture, like is going to build their belonging to the thing. You're probably already doing 1 or 2 of those things with your event anyway, but you just want to make sure those are the things. If it's just making your group feel better about being part of a group, that's great. But what I'm saying is, if you've got a group of people who are really enjoying being together, you have a marketing engine there as well. Like exposing other, like people are so desperate for human connection right now. They're doing everything digitally. They're realizing that, I actually went to the gym on my phone and it wasn't really a good workout. And so then, you suddenly see a group of folks that are laughing and talking about this thing they did, and they're also exercising, and It's pretty easy to start pulling people in that way, easier than it is to get people off their phone and into your dojo. So I would look at that as a big piece. One of the things I wanted to talk about briefly, we asked a little bit about like expenses and equipment, and what do you guys feel like are the costs of doing it that are holding you up? Like, where are there costs that mess you up? And I will say that I think of costs not always in terms of money, but in terms of time, energy, patience. Like, all these things are costs. Where are you running short on capital, whether it's financial capital or energy capital or human capital or anything else like that? Like, in the situation you have now, or even that you foresee when you first start, what do you think will be the things that'll keep you from getting what you want, marketing the way you want, getting the attention you want, moving the students forward? What jumps out at you as expenses that are tough?
For me, it's time.
Yeah.
It's because during the day I'm an engineer, and then I come home, and then I'm a martial arts instructor.
Yeah.
So having the time to create lesson plans, to teach, to market, to get information out there, to do events, it's a lot of time that I don't have in the day right now.
I would say it's the same issue for us here as well.
Right.
Job, family.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of other commitments.
Yeah, especially when you add family in there. Now it's not just the job, but when you're not working, why, this is when you get to spend time with your family. What are you doing? Spending time figuring out how to market for this dojo.
Mhm.
What are the things you would like to purchase with that time?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to ask about, which Josh just mentioned, is the lesson planning. So we've got, you're here, Gordon, Dee Dee. I mean, how do you organize your lesson plans so that you can teach the different students at a certain, everyone's on the same page, so to speak? Okay. Do you have a lesson plan for each rank that you follow each week? I know yours is pretty structured, Tanner, right?
Mine is a cycle. So I do quarterly, monthly, weekly rotating concepts, so that when I start the month, it's like the week is coming up and I have the teacher meeting about what we're going to go over. I don't have to recreate the wheel. I go, well, for instance, last week was we're still technically in the third quarter, which is the concept for the quarter is joy and repetition. So it's how do we, like, the basic overall concept for that one is joy and repetition. The third month of that quarter is speed and fluidity. And then the fourth week is the mortar week, which is for us anything that's not in the main katas or just concepts that make the fundamentals better. So we do week 1 is kata week, week 2 is legs week, which is stances, kicks. Week 3 is defense and applications. Week 4 is mortar. If there's a 5th week in the month, we do bonus week. And so when I look at that combo, I know, okay, well, we're in mortar, which is either us doing basic fundamentals or addressing something I've been noticing the other 3 weeks. But it's about speed and fluidity. So we're working on that flavoring of it. And also, like, what makes those things, how do we make sort of games out of repeating them over and over and over again and varying it in different ways? So that's the way I come at it.
One thing that it's not necessarily a lesson plan per se, but it's something that we do, and this may work for the smaller dojos. I mean, I couldn't see, maybe you guys could do it at Unity and at Sungmin Shu in Rohai where you guys have that many students. But one thing that I do is I keep track. All of my instructors, we have a Google sheet that we talk about what we taught that night for the students in each rank. And then that way we can make sure we're hitting everything we need to, because unlike a lot, we don't, since we have this big gap with nothing in the middle, we rotate every evening. I'll teach the white belts one night. The next night, Matt will teach the white belts, and we'll move it around so that each of our instructors can get each of the ranks. And I understand the comment about, oh, well, that could be like it's, you know, do the students feel like, oh, what's going to happen now? Someone's going to do something like a little differently, but we mostly are fairly consistent. But by having the spreadsheet at the end of the class, we go in and put down what we taught and who was there. Now, and like for hundreds of students, I don't see that could be feasible, but for ours, I think that's been working well. We've been doing that for 10 years, and it helps us keep track with that kind of rotation.
I would say I've been missing bits of the conversation because of the poor internet connection here, but in terms of handle what they need, I think a lot about the structure of the class as opposed to having a specific lesson plan for the content of the class. So for instance, you may have a large group and you put green belts and above in one circle and below green belt in the other circle, and you have them run what they're practicing on for a portion of the class. We did that with the teen class yesterday. The below green belts each had to pick a kick combination and count for everyone in the circle. There were about 15 people in that circle, and then about 12 people in the green belt and above circle, each picking something at their level. And they get into working hard at those combinations in a way that they might not do if I were just up in front of the class saying, you guys do this, you guys do that, and I were counting, because they are having some, they have to know some ideas about what to practice, but the two green stripes in the white belt circle helped out the newer white belts on what they should pick. The green belt and up, this is a teen group, they were all yelling at each other what they ought to pick. So, but the bottom line is I'm looking, I'm watching, I'm stepping in and saying, do this, don't do that if necessary. I'm making sure they're working on things they need to work on and not being silly, but I'm handling all those different ranks by myself and getting them to work hard on what they need to be working on. So that's more of a structural approach rather than coming in with a specific lesson plan. I go, okay, I really need to look at the one brown stripes. Are they ready to test? And so that day, only one of them shows up. My class plan's out the window. After, 40 years of that, I don't come in with class plans anymore. I come in with a knowledge of the curriculum, and I look at who's there and I make a structure within which they can practice what they need to practice.
Yeah, I honestly do the same thing, even within that framework I was telling you about. Because if I make a clear structure, yeah, inevitably I won't get to do it. And so I have that framework of concepts that give me some fresh ideas. And then we always do the class in thirds. So 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. The first 30 minutes is warming up by repping whatever our concept was for last week, just to have that come back through. And then the middle one is the thinking about it more. And the third one is the social one, because I always want to finish with something fun. They'll forget how much I tortured them if we have a good time at the very end. And so if we do, if I just know I have like 3 or 4 activity ideas, then I can see, well, like that one's out the window because my brown belts aren't here. And so you can, so I like to look at it and get inspired by having a few ideas, like the circle up and do combos idea. And then, but you're not going to know exactly what that looks like until you see who's standing in front of you. So yeah, that's why I like to come in with it. Like when we're teaching the new folks how to run a class, I have them go like, look at this and come up with 5 ways we can work on this. And you're probably going to do 2 of them, and then you're going to come up with a third one on the fly. But you've got 5 ideas. You got 5 things ready to go. Anybody
I
else got
totally
another?
missed that last thing.
Oh, I was saying I have the new folks come up with 5 ideas for how they want to work on the concept for class. If they're coming up with a class plan, and I tell them, you're probably going to do 2 of these and come up with a third one on the fly, but you're never going to do all 5 of them. But now because you see who's there and you go, and half the time I'll be like, man, we're going to work on really good stances, and then I get there and I see 5 people with a terrible reaction in, and I'm like, well, now we're working on reaction because that cannot stand. Anyway,
So let me ask a question. This might also help Ben. Some of these actually are fun ideas. I've done some in the past, but then I often find myself in a situation where there's 3 students, right? And so then there's a mass that's missing for guiding things, and in some ways keeping things interesting, right? Because when it's only 3, you're like, you tend to, at least for me, tend to get towards the same thing all the time.
yeah.
Right. Even there's some variety. So any suggestions there, keeping in mind a smaller size class where you don't have 10 people feeding off each other?
The biggest thing when I get a small group is that my plan doesn't have enough things. Like if there's 25 of them in there, I will barely get 3 things done. But if there's 3 of them in there, we're going to get 6 or 7 things done. And so just because they're going to get it and they'll be like, okay, I got this. And so you can't just repeat it or go check other people. Like you got to have some more pieces in mind. The easiest thing for me to do on the fly is to stage the thing so that now instead of it being an activity, it's an activity, and now we add the next level to it, and now we do the crazy thing with it, and so now it becomes a larger and expansive thing. Like we were just going to do as a group this application to pin on 2, but since it's just the 3 of you, I'm going to show you a much crazier application to pin on 2, and here's the one with the cartwheel, and that then takes us a larger chunk of time, or the same amount of time it would have taken with 25 people. And so I tend to just like modify and add to the ideas you already had. But I think the key thing is just switch gears a little bit more, because it will feel like the energy drops way down if you're just like, we're doing blocks and punches, it's just the 3 of y'all, and then 15 minutes go by and they're like, I'm really tired of this blocks and punches. Because there's just not, you're right, the energy is really different.
Yeah.
Just switch
We
around.
always say secret techniques.
Right.
If it's a really small class, we go,
Yeah.
oh, this is great. We can do secret techniques. And then do pretty much what Tanner said. You do the crazy version of something. The secret is that it's something you actually want them to be working on, but you've tweaked it and made it a little crazier so it seems more fun.
Right.
Or maybe throw in some extracurricular, mix it in there, and then sneak it back into the curricular.
Yeah.
We would take the sets from the rank requirements, stances, blocks, movement, hand techniques, and I'd number them. And I'd just ask individuals, okay, depending on the number of stances that were mentioned for the requirements, I go pick a number from 1 to 6. And I'd get 5, and I'd do that for each. And then I go, okay, you're going to do this. You're going to do this stance with this block, and then this kick, and then this hand technique, and let them self-generate. And one of the interesting outcomes was you sort of get this, does that really work? And if not, why not? You know, because some combinations, there's a reason why it doesn't flow. And you get them thinking like, okay, what is it about that stance that doesn't necessarily support that particular hand? And you've got them involved in, because they're picking them, but it's random rather than you coming up with this. It's like, okay, well, just pick them at random. And you can also use sets from previous ranks if you've got multiple ranks. So that's one technique of getting them to help self-generate their combinations. And a lot of people said, I didn't know you could do that. You can put these together in different, I'm like, yeah. So
Yeah, in terms of covering everything, because you know, especially if you're teaching multiple ranks and you're just trying to get everybody ready for tests, there's so much curriculum. You really do need to have something like Mark was talking about. If you have a spreadsheet and you're like, here's the categories, you know, we're saying what we covered, just so you know, like, wow, nobody's done thumb escape, or nobody's got, you know, they haven't worked on throws in 2 months. You do want to, I would do some bookkeeping for that.
Yeah, I've never tracked that. I've only tracked that timing up here where I'm like, no, feels like it's been a while since we've done blocks and punches.
Yeah, that can get away from you. I would break it up into like 8 categories and just check them off. We did this, this, and this. I try to do 3 in every class, like I said. So I'm like hitting the main theme of last week. And I always think of it, I don't try to do a whole different curriculum for the Tuesday and the Thursday and like basically it's the all the same principles, most of the same stuff, but with slightly different activities and different emphases and some different techniques, so that if they come to all the classes, it doesn't feel like they're repeating it. But if they only come to one, they get the meat of what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Because you get the once a week people and you get the 17 times a week people, and you can't make 17 lesson plans. Just
One of the things I also do when
everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose.
Yeah. When I have a smaller group, it depends on if you're talking about like young children, this probably would not work. But if they're a little bit older children or adults, if there's only 1 or 2 or 3 of them, I get excited and say, well, this is great because now I'm going to have the opportunity to really work with you guys on real good details and really focus on this. And just the other day, I had only one of my 4 green stripes. And so I did exactly that with him. And he's 47 years old. And he was excited as all get out that we got some real detailed time, even though I told him he's never going to remember half of what I corrected him on, as long as he gets a couple of those. And we rep those details over and over again during the class period. I think that helps when there's a smaller number, keep them excited.
Also, just in general, one of the things I always try to keep track of with any drill is how many people are standing around. And so if there's a thing where, oh, it's really cool, but they have to use the piece of equipment and everybody else is in line, then I always want to construct something they're doing in line. And so that's just a thing I've always got my mind on. So one of the things that's nice when you have just a few in class is you can do a big elaborate setup, or a thing that takes up a lot of space, or a thing that requires a lot of sprinting, and just be like, woohoo, we get the whole space right now. At one point we're working on a thing that I wanted them to do, which was like jumping backwards and spinning around and landing in a side drop. And I was just going to make the level higher and higher and higher until it was like they were 8 or 9 feet off the ground. But if you do that, as fun as that is, and as much as it makes an impression on them, a bunch of people are waiting in line. So I waited for that until there was a group of 6 of them, and was like, okay, now we're gonna really get into this thing that we can't do when there's a bunch of folks. So yeah, again, make it special that there's not a lot of them. Be like, we're gonna get the bow staffs, and we're gonna swing them in giant circles and work on how we're gonna do weight training in a way that takes up a lot of space. So we're gonna just let them use the space, explore the room. we tried a game the other night that I'd like thought of it on Monday night and I was like, surely that wouldn't work. And then it worked so well. It was, everybody got in pairs and they all got one dodgeball. And you've done the side drop practice where you're like on all fours and you reach your arm under and they pull your arm up and it flips you over. So they were doing that, but it was again, where it's like joy and repetition. And so you've got a dodgeball in your hand and you do it like this, crouch, you reach under, and then the other person points you at another pair. And when they pull your hand, you release the dodgeball as you go to side drop and it launches it like a trebuchet. And then, and if you hit anybody, that both people in their pair have to do 10 push-ups. And so they're like running around the room trying to position each other and then flip each other over and launch it. It was wonderful. I highly recommend it. Lots of side drops, lots of laughing. Very good.
You'll have to record that video of that. I'd like to see that to see how.
I got security cameras. Everything's on video.
Oh, there you go. You got to send that to the group.
Yeah. Any other ideas or issues about, again, like what do you this was a question that came out of what would you do with your time to try to create, with your time, with your energy, with your money, with your anything else. I mean, that's one of the balances is if you say, well, I don't have any time, but I make a decent paycheck, I'm going to put $80 a month into marketing, whether that's like making flyers, making Facebook ads, doing, something like that. And you say, well, I'm going to do that because I don't have as much time, but I have a little bit of cash. Or you say, I don't want to spend any money on this. I don't have a lot of time. How much am I willing to spend? Would I spend 1 hour a week? Because we have a tendency to just go, I don't have enough time. When in fact, the real question is, how much time are you willing to spend on this? And now just budget it. Say, I'll do 20 minutes Monday, 20 minutes Thursday, and 30 minutes on Saturday. And you go, what am I going to do with that time? So once you've given yourself a budget, whether that's time or money or anything else, now you can compare that to activities and say, okay, well, with 20 minutes on Monday, I could call 7 people. And with this thing on Wednesday, I'm going to use that to make a set of Facebook posts that are going to go out throughout the week. And then on Saturday, I'm going to work on the way to make this event that we've got coming up something where I can try to get people to bring 5 or 6 new folks in. But giving yourself a time budget like that means you'll do something with it. Whereas saying I'm so busy means you'll leave it alone because it feels like it's too much. So just make a budget and spend your budget. You make a budget of $60 and you say, well, how much Facebook ads can I get for that? It's actually more than you would guess. And then you go, all right, what do I want to market? And I would say, whatever you do, don't send a thing out that says free first lesson karate classes. Send a thing out that's like, we're doing a special beach thing to raise money for this charity. Please come support us. Come play the games. Come help this charity. We'll teach you a free karate thing while you're here. Plus it's for a good cause. Well, now you get some people who are interested in that cause. Maybe they're interested in karate. It's just more interesting than saying, come take karate. I promise it's great. Let's see. What are you guys' feelings about your teacher training, like your own training and your ability to train your teachers? Do you feel like is that something you wish you could put more time into or get more help with? Or does it feel like that's something that goes really well? Like, where do you guys feel in terms of, because one of the big comments that I get regularly is, got my black belt, now I teach 3 times a week, and I'm supposed to figure out my own training, and I don't know exactly, and I'm less motivated. Just the situation changed, right? Like maybe, I remember having this conversation with Quinn at one point and saying, we're asking people to be like 5 different things. Like first we ask them to be somebody who's willing to try new things, right? And then we're asking them to be a person who pushes through really tough stuff when it gets hard. And then we're asking them to be a person who's a teacher. And then we're asking them to be like a leader and a market. And then now we want them to be a business person. And like, whew, that's a lot of stuff. maybe some people are only 3 of those things, or some of those are really outside their comfort zone. But all that to say, does that flow naturally, or does it feel like that's a hoop that you're having trouble jumping over? Because one of the big important things about growing a school and having the energy for it and the time and the excitement is you got to be motivated too, right? You want to find where your joy in it is. And if you're feeling like that's harder than it used to be, one of the things you might want to do is say, what would fire me up? Like, well, what would make this really exciting to me? What if I added this activity or that activity, or got to do a little bit of this training or that training, or got to, go to this event, or bring these people into town, or what? Like and again, your question is, what's your budget? What's your time budget, your money budget, your attention budget, right?
I think for me, uh, from an engineering mindset, I love being creative within the proper parameters. So I think for me, it's more of, if someone would take the time to sit down with me and say, okay, I've created this marketing plan. This is how I did it. This is the creativity aspect of it. It would give me a step-by-step type process that I can work from there.
Yeah.
Right now it's more of, hey, create your own thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to come up with that idea.
Absolutely.
Almost like a little toolkit,
Right. Something to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. That's some of the stuff we want to be doing right now. What else?
I missed part of the question, Tanner, when you were talking right before Joshua responded. It was about finding what gets your enthusiasm up, but then by the time I came back into the audio, Joshua was talking about advertising.
Right. I think I was saying, and just generally when we to energize ourselves as kind of the battery behind a lot of this growth that's going to happen, what would help us get there? Would it be, do we have money to spend on that, time to spend on that? Again, like looking at resources and saying, do I perceive a thing, and then what is my budget in all the various resources that I have to get at that?
Yeah, the audio went out again.
It's secret. It's secret information that you're not meant to know.
Yeah, I was having a thought. Now I've lost it, but
the internet will do that.
I mean, is the connection to marketing the idea that you'd be more jazzed if you had more new students coming in?
Or more like you're gonna have more students coming in if you're more jazzed.
If you're more jazzed, okay.
So how do we make sure, if there's something we can feed there, let's make a budget of time or money or something to figure out how we feed ourselves too.
Right.
You are going to be the source of this light, whether that's in whatever version your resources flow out to do this. So don't starve while you're trying to do this. Feed yourself.
To me, this brings up the topic of making sure everyone remembers that they can pursue success in their own particular personal way, and not to have the idea that you must come to a meeting and be told how to be and how to teach and how to run your dojo.
Right.
You come to a meeting to get ideas that jazz you, but you have to feel why you're doing this and what you want from it, and you have to understand that it is okay to do it in your own way.
Yeah.
And not think, well, if so and so says the right way to teach is this, then that's what I have to do, even though it doesn't feel comfortable for me. There are a lot of ways to do things, and you find the way that feels comfortable for you and that makes you want to go down there and do it every day or 3 days a week or whatever. And you go with that, and you'll find your success by being yourself.
And so with this marketing, I mean, it'll be a faster process, but hopefully we can do the whole like, you're a white belt at this. Let me show you the basics. And now here's the green belt stuff. And now, oh, you're doing your brown belt marketing a little differently than I did. And then by then you're showing me like, oh, here's the thing I found. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Because there are so many ways to come at this, and it needs to be personal or it's not going to be fun.
So
One of the things
something
that, go
something
ahead.
I found in the last couple of years, because I've been by myself for the last 5 years, is that I have to go travel an hour and a half or so to train with people. And I think probably most of you in here at some point in time were in that position before you started a dojo and built a community around yourselves. But I get motivated when people come to see me. I get to go see them. Even if it's just an afternoon, I'll make it to Charlotte every now and then. I go to Raleigh more often. But I was going to say one thing that can help when I start to build my own community is that I want to bring my students with me for those things. I know as a student, I'm very motivated when my instructor trains with me. We both go somewhere and let somebody else teach. And it's not all the time that I'm having to teach them and they're always learning from me. We go places, within the region and work out together. So when I start to bring in people, that's something I want to try to continue to do, is not just feel like I have to be here in Greensboro teaching this person all the time. Let's both go to Charlotte and work out together with Stephen or Paul. I'm going to try not to lose that because that is motivating to me.
Mark, were you saying something?
Yeah, I was going to say one other thing that at least for me motivates me is when you get new people, and obviously I think not just to bring in new students, but just new students coming in, the new energy of someone who has never done this before is really exciting. And one of the things that can help get that energy with a lot of new students is doing those free self-defense seminars. We just did one for Rollins College, and we had almost 50 students from Rollins come to the seminar, and the energy was just amazing. And the going through normal stuff that you normally teach to your existing students to new people who have never seen it before, and the excitement that they see and get from it is infectious. And so that's another thing that it energized me. Even though we've done them before, and I feel great, and I don't feel like I'm in any way unhappy and bored with teaching. But every time you do something like that and you get a whole bunch of new students in, it just that level of energy just gets better for me.
I think for me, like the best, my crack is seeing the reflection of their instructors in them. Because once they get to the teaching ranks and they'll start saying little quirks that maybe I said when I was teaching them, or Quentin said it when he was teaching them. And it comes out in usually in like their first warm-ups they get to lead. Like I'll say something usually like, do 20 push-ups and 20 ab exercises of your choice. And then they say the same thing. And then the next generation does the same thing. So seeing this kind of lineage, which is, it's in a sense a reflection of their instructors, but also a reflection of their instructors' instructors, or a reflection of their instructors all the way back. And just kind of seeing how it passes down the line to each new generation of Kung Nu is like the most exciting thing. How we teach some things, or how things like little quirks I learned from my instructor is now getting replicated further down the line, like cell division.
Yeah. So, and if you have any others, mention them. But one of the reasons I'm going to keep mentioning this in terms of budgeting time and money and things like that is because several of these categories about you guys traveling and getting fired up with stuff, or marketing, or getting, a lot of these aspects of building your dojos are things that the board of directors would love to help you pay for. And so as you're looking at it and going, how do I don't know where the money would come in for X, Y, and Z, just keep in mind that we would like to help. And so you guys having a clear plan and a budget, and I want to do this because it's going to mean this, this, and this. We have our equipment funds and our travel funds. We don't actually have a marketing fund at this moment, but it's not a terrible idea. But but anyway, so as you're looking at those things, keep in mind this other little, and I can't remember how I phrased it in there, but what are the other resources that aren't obvious that you have? You know, do you know somebody that works at a radio station locally? Do you know somebody that's a higher up in a university nearby? Do you have tons of like red posts? Like, what do you have that you weren't even thinking about that you could go, you know, we could do something with that? And you know, the board of directors funds to try to help you guys is one of those. Like, just what are the things that you could bring into your resources that you haven't already thought of? And remember that you have lots of human connections and you have lots of social connections and um, you have groups that would love to see you come and do a thing, but you've just never thought of it before. And then with each of those, your question is, what can I do that makes me identify and have the names and phone number / email addresses of the people that go, oh, I'm interested. Because one of the things that we get is we'll do somebody be like, hey, would you come and do this quick thing? And you go there and you know, there's 50 people watch you and it's super exciting and 2 people ask you questions about it and then you leave and you go like, oh, I don't have anybody's phone number. I don't know how do I collect those people? There was a lot of people that got excited about what we were doing. And so capturing those leads is a really big part of building your student base. And it's not a mercenary thing to do. It's just, it's getting, because one of the things we found, if you get leads and you call them and they say, oh yeah, no, I'd love to come in and try a class, and then they don't come in and try a class, and then you call them again a month later and a month later and then 2 weeks later and a month, like, and 6 months later they finally come in and they're like, oh yeah, no, I've wanted to come in the whole time, I just, life is crazy. So you can imagine that if you did this event and they saw you, they just sort of have a dream about you every now and then. We're like, yeah, I kind of wish I had done that thing. I don't know who that guy was, where they are now. And so you getting leads and following them up is not you being an obnoxious salesperson. I mean, as soon as somebody's like, I'm really not interested in your thing, you're done with them. But it's you reminding people that they were interested and helping them remember that, hey, we still have this thing, it's great, you should come check it out. And once you have a list of 200, 300, 400, 500 names and numbers and you're budgeting time for marketing, calling, emailing is a really good use of your time, making sure that those people that have not said, no, I'm not interested in this, that you touch base with them again, because they were interested, you know, at least half the time they were interested. So, but people are overwhelmed.
Hey, Tanner,
Yeah.
do you do any kind of exit interview for people that have left?
Yeah, it's not a formalized thing, but I try to talk to everybody.
Yeah, I've found that helps. If
Yeah.
nothing else, it just gives me some insights into something I might consider changing.
Mhm.
You know, if they give you that kind of feedback, you think about it and say, yeah, that's probably something I should do better.
Right.
Like, yeah, your classes are too small or too big or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's always valuable information, especially when you are targeting certain things and you're losing some of those students in that target that you want. That's valuable information. So we mentioned you know, business plans and things. The full-on business plan I recommend for anyone who wants to like get a bank loan to start their own professional dojo. You really want to have a very detailed business plan, and I'd love to help you make that. If you're a business plan type person and that's the way your brain works, feel free to make one of any level of detail. But the thing that I want you to do, no matter what level you're working with, is just chart your course a little bit. You know, what are the resources that I see that I have? What are the challenges that I see in my way? Um, what are some ideas about how to get around those? And just sort of begin to map it. And I encourage you to quantify as many of those things as you can. Really try not to say, I don't have enough teachers. Try to say, this is the number of teachers that would really be helpful, and visualize the structure. Because sometimes when you do that, you go, all right, that's my goal. I got to get 2 more instructors. But sometimes you look at it and you go, oh, wait a minute, I could probably add this to this. All right, now I only really need 1 more instructor. You know, and then there's other ways around these things. If you say again, you know, one of the very common ones is, I don't have time to do all this stuff. But you have some time. What you want to do is figure out exactly how much time you have. And then once you have that, just look at it like a resource. You know, I've got 90 minutes a week. I've got you know, $40 a week. I've got this much per week. What's my plan? And then we can start trying things, and when they work, you put more resources into them. When they don't work, you try something else, and you go through and sort of refining your approach. And you know, some of your resources are like your brown belts. You know, how are my brown belts going to help? You know, one of my favorite things to do is that brown belt is to give them a leadership project. And so whatever they do, I'm like, just do something that makes the sort of resonant energy of our personality louder. That's what your brown belt project is. So like, you know, what makes us who we are, do something that makes that bigger, that I don't have to mess with. So, you know, Elizabeth started her book club. You know, some of the teens wanted to do a homeless food thing, and it's like, great. I'll give you advice, but it's yours to run. And so those things, though, also become ways that we, you know, when we brag about them or invite people to them, those are also ways that we reach out to folks. And so I'm using them to help me with outreach by making them think about ways that they can build the community, build activities for the community, do things that we all like to do together. And you know, George's is the camping trip that we're doing. He does 2 a year. And just, you know, once you know that they're doing that and they have this sort of very digestible project, well, now I can, my whole job is just to make sure everybody knows about it and gets excited about it, instead of I'll have to plan it and get the campsite and the tents and all, you know. Nope, George is doing all that. I'm just gonna show up and eat food on Saturday. So in my mind, that's your most basic version of your business plan. Just where are we now? Can I quantify our resources? What are our challenges? Can I quantify my challenges? What are my goals? Can I quantify the goals? And now how do I just start connecting the strings between these things? And so in our next meeting, what I really want to do is take those specific things and workshop how to connect the strings between what's in your way, what do you have, how do we move forward. And so I want to try to start really connecting those together. One of the things I want to talk about before we start closing up is that you know, one my original idea for this is that we split out into a lot of different groups that are much more focused. We can do that and break into smaller groups. We can keep meeting as one group. If you know, if this is the number of people we have, this is a pretty manageable group size. But we could also split off into groups of 2 and 3 and really workshop in an incredibly focused way what you're doing with your specific thing. What do you guys feel about it? What would you prefer?
Either one. I mean, I hate to be
Yeah.
wishy-washy, but either one.
Yeah, I see value in both. Maybe depends on how big the group is that night, or
Right. Because like on the one hand, like with Ben, I'd love to work on just like how do we build a brand new thing. You know, Jacob's want to talk more about the college version of stuff. We've got slightly different categories of things. But I do think the approach to them all is similar. I think the puzzle is going to be the same. The difference is that the way you solve the puzzle looks different if you're you know, Tony K or Gordon or Mark or me or Ben, right? That you're the collection of resources, challenges, and solutions have very different flavors. But I think the way that we arrive at them is very similar. So if it's okay with you guys, we can do the next one and just bring everybody together again. But well, I do think at some point we should split out into smaller groups and really focus on you just like 2 or 3 dojos together, being like, these are our goals. Let's keep each other on it and motivate each other and work towards trying to get them done. But I think we can do more of this concept work, because this next meeting I really want to go over, like I said, can we quantify our resources, quantify our challenges, quantify our goals, and then make a really clear plan. I think after that, it might be good for us to split out into smaller groups and even pair up and go, let's go forward from here and really push. Do you guys have any comments or questions about any of this?
I'm gonna have to get a better internet connection.
Yeah, you gotta buy the level 3 internet.
Doesn't come to our house.
That's
We don't have fiber optic in our neighborhood.
that's rough. Yeah, no, it's that way at the dojo.
I don't know. I have, of the topics that came up today, I've probably been through every possible version of finding help for myself and teaching
Cool.
class, a lot of help. I've been through all of that, and I'm happy and eager to share with people based on topic or based on where they are and how to get to where they want to be.
Yeah.
But today's discussion made me think a lot about the specific topics versus the general plan.
From my understanding from our various surveys, the biggest ones are new students and retention and teacher training. Those are the 2 things that came up the most. Was how can I get and keep students, and and then I think the third was probably how do I deal with multi-rank classes. That was probably, which is really sort of saying I need more instructors, but until I get them, how do I teach all these folks? And so I want to start with how do I get and keep students, and then but we should also address those other 2 because they're very important. But the nice thing about the first one is it's really easy to quantify. So we can really measure progress well and measure resources well. How the classes are going is a much more long-term quantifiable. We see my students are testing better, or I'm finding myself having more energy and time, and I'm excited about testing. Those are a little bit squishier than we're up 5 students, which is easier to measure. But it's all important.
When you talk about teacher training, are you talking about Nidon working on his Sandan requirements, or are you talking about learning how to be a better teacher?
Both.
Or both.
It's really, to me, those are connected because they're teachers spending time on themselves. That to me is the category. Is, are you spending time on being good at being an advanced martial artist, or are you finding that you don't have that time, or you're not figuring out how to make time or how to work that in, or
I was understanding it also to mean, maybe Gordon was also, training people to be better teachers to help in the dojo.
Yeah. Well, I think,
whether it be purple belt kids helping with the kids class,
sure,
or brown belts being helpful rather than hindering and getting their teaching credits.
Right. And there's some, one of the things I'd love to do as at one of these stages very soon is everybody that's got a framework in place already that can collect those and say, here's what we do. It's all written down. folks can look at those and go, oh, I like this idea, this idea, this idea. Just in case you don't have one already and you want one. And then, yeah, and then let's all learn from what everybody's doing so that we can refine them and grow them and all that stuff. But yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks for everybody for showing up. And we'll shoot for another one about a month from now. But if you guys want to really focus on, again, your resources, your challenges, your goals, that's the thing I want you to be mapping out and being creative about, and then we'll do those. And as a goal for this month, try to come up with, if you've already got an activity, your goal is to make that activity something where you're collecting some names and bringing some strangers. And if you don't have one, try to come up with something to do over this month that brings people together in a way that's not just Kung Nu, but it's also something that's vital to the DNA of who you are as a dojo, so that you have another avenue to bring people in to talk about that event, that both gives you a broader reach and also make sure that the kinds of people who are interested are now double interested, because it's both the martial arts thing and this other thing that you're interested in. So they're more of a lock for the dojo. They're more likely to go, oh, I want to be with this. These guys have two things in common with me more than just one. Also, if it's karate and donate, helping a charity, they get to be good at helping a charity on the first day, right? They're pretty nervous about the karate because they feel like they're going to look like an idiot on the first day. So they get to be competent the first time you meet them, which makes people more comfortable. So giving them something where it's just like, we're doing something that's just a fun thing that we like to do together, that you're not going to be bad at. And then maybe we can convince you that we're forgiving cool folks and you'll come be bad at karate in front of us. And we'll be super cool about it. So that's your goal for this month, and then we'll talk about those next time. And Ben, yours is to do some kind of an event with your guys that starts giving them the idea that you want to do this thing and what that might look like. And it might even just be figuring out how that's going to work. Like, who do I talk to? Where do I go? What's the space we would use? All that kind of stuff. Cool. All right, guys.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you
Tanner.
all.
Yeah. Happy
Great.
Thanks,
Friday.
Tanner.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tanner.